All right, okay. So we had a little bit of a problem with our desktop audio there and desktop mic. It should be enabled now. All the witty banter you've just missed, so that's such a
Outrageous.
shame. Um, Vaj has just come in and told us that we weren't broadcasting live, but you can see the race event. It's just got underway. Um, Again, we have the four teams racing. There's a TSN team. Somebody, I think it was the Artemis, has just hit one of the asteroids. And a second asteroid. I mean, it is a way of getting around the course, don't you think?
I mean, it's not what I would classify as a shortcut, but it'll definitely get you there, just maybe not in one piece.
User left your channel.
Okay, I think with Vaj leaving there, it means that we are coming through loud and clear, which is good. Artemis seems to be kind of taking wide turns. I just hope that they are not the TSN team. They need to fly better than this if they are. I know,
Absolutely.
was it Callan who's a pilot on there? He was saying that he needed to go and brush up on his piloting skills. Evidently, he's not taken his own advice on that one.
I mean, I'd hope that Kalon is sticking to his forte, which is engineering.
Well, we've got.
He's not bad behind a wheel, but yeah, he's definitely better placed in engineering.
I'm sure he'll be happy to hear that. Okay, Artemis once again scraping itself off asteroids.
Yeah, they do love that screen wobble. Oh, and again.
It looks like Scott's Cruise has just completed its first lap, going between points 1p and 1s. If you're joining us for the first time here as well, in fact you will be because this is the first race, the P and the S on the locations indicate the direction in which they've got to go around those boys. So you can see down here we've got 2S, that is a second turn, and they've got to keep that marker on the starboard side of the ship. So Scott's Cruiser and the Artemis there completing a successful turn. Scott's Cruiser, I think, is currently leading the way. They've just managed to make it around turn 3 and turn 4. That has turned pretty quick. Turkish
is giving them a run for their money, though. They are trailing, not by much. They're closing in on them.
The Turkish fleet is coming along. They look like they're just about to finish their first lap. And Diana currently is trailing. Artemis once again scraping across all the asteroids to get through that there. It's a nice little part of the course that I think is a navigational challenge for the crews to get through that asteroid field without losing too many hull plates.
I mean, it's a bold choice to just gun it through an asteroid. I mean, it's really down to the engineer at that point to make sure shields are staying up and hull damage isn't too ridiculous. Because it's all fun and games going, we'll just plow right through. But if you start sustaining internal damage and all of a sudden you lose power to maneuvering or you lose power to warp, you're going to have a bad time. So what we're hoping to see here as Scott's Cruiser and Artemis enter the nebula is just that small boost to warp, just to push themselves through. It looks like they've cleared that without any kind of issue.
To be honest with you, it looked like the Diana was waiting there for them to catch up. They are a full lap behind. I'm not quite sure where they're going there, trying to hit as many asteroids as they can, possibly. They've managed to make it through their first lap. The Turkish fleet is currently in third, coming up onto their fifth turn there. Artemis once again going all the way through the asteroids. I think they're actually trying to pass through the asteroids themselves rather than go around.
It's a bold strategy. Let's see if it pays off. I mean, they seem to be making up lost time. Oh, and here they go. They're just cutting in front of Scott's Cruiser. But their turn isn't quite tight enough, and Scott's Cruiser just breezes right past. Right. So maybe a little bit more power to manoeuvring there.
Right, I just got a comment saying that Kristen was a little bit quiet, so I've turned your volume up there, so hopefully you're coming through a bit louder.
Excellent.
In the meantime,
people need to hear me.
I know you've been talking to our sponsors. Did you not have a couple of announcements from our sponsors?
Yes. This broadcast is brought to you by the TSN, but it is sponsored by Kralian Whaling Harpoons. Kralian Whaling Harpoons. You kill them, we grill them. Yes, they've been very kind to... sorry, not Kralian, Torgoth. We've just lost all of our sponsorship now.
Oh, you know, the Torgoth authorities are going to go mental now. Fantastic.
I should be immediately fired out the airlock. Okay, that's something we should probably explain for people who've never watched before. Obviously, the buoys that are markers are marked either S for starboard, P for port, which indicates which side of the ship should be facing as you pass. But there are penalties for incorrect movement.
Yeah, so the penalties will be issued by our race director, that's Raiden at the moment. And the penalty is that you've got to actually stop on the spot, complete a 360-degree turn before you're allowed to continue on to the next turn. So it looked like, was it the Artemis that had incurred a penalty there?
I've seen a couple of penalties so far, but nothing too major. A couple of full 360s. I mean, it is a penalty, but as long as you've got again that freedom to just burn out 300% on maneuvering, you can get past that pretty quick. Obviously, the problem being if you keep incurring those penalties, you're just going to be spinning for a long time.
Yes. So the Artemis just passing 0.6 and 0.7 there. It looks like they're now heading down to 0.8 to complete their next lap. Scott's Cruiser looks like it has finished.
Fantastic.
It looks like they are the winners of this inaugural race. It'll be interesting to see which one is Scott's Cruiser and maybe get a talk with the team there. The Artemis coming up to its final and passing the finish line there as well. Fantastic.
There we go. A healthy second place for the Artemis, although probably with severe structural damage. So we're just waiting on the Diana and the Turkish fleet rounding buoy 6.
Yeah, the Diana taking it very wide there. I think with the drift on the warp systems, you really need to be careful not to take your hand off the warp and just let it come to a stop so that you can get round a little bit quicker, boosting that power to your maneuvering systems.
Absolutely.
Interesting tactics from Diana, though. They are actually going around the nebula, cutting it out completely so that they don't have to pass through it. They're on 0.7, really wide one around 0.8. That's a clever way of going about it.
It's those big wide turns can come in handy sometimes. It looks like it's paid off for them now.
Definitely, yeah. That was a fast ending for the Diana there.
Absolutely, and that bronze medal taken by the Diana, Turkish fleet, looking like they took a small penalty there.
It does, yeah.
On that last buoy.
So we've got 3 currently finished. Scott's Cruiser in first, Artemis in second, Diana looks like it's finished third, and Turkish fleet is just finishing off there.
I mean, I think this really highlights the fact that although these are smaller crews, the communication is still really, really important. You need a strong, steady hand at the helm, but the helm also needs to be communicating with engineering at all times, just to let them know exactly what they need. Those high energy turns will absolutely be useful, or if you want to take those larger looping turns, that still needs to be made clear. But there we go. It looks like that is our first race finish. Congratulations to all participants, but particularly Scott Cruiser for that clear first place.
Yeah, I mean, they took a lot of corners really tight there. I think that was very well controlled, and they probably made up a little bit more time compared to other crews by not hitting every asteroid.
I mean, again, it was a bold strategy by the Artemis, but it didn't quite seem to give them the edge. I think it would have given them the edge they needed if they'd managed to take some of those turns tighter. And just because for a few brief moments they were edging out in front of Scott's Cruiser, but they were halfway through a turn when it happened, and Scott's Cruiser had already completed a turn and were just able to blast out ahead of them.
Yeah. Right, I think we are going to go to a bit of a break there. We'll see if we can get one of the crews together to catch up with them on how they thought it went. Keep watching, and we'll be back in a few moments. Oh yeah, by the way, there was a couple of complaints that I didn't have music playing in the background whilst doing the commentary. So,
outrageous.
I know.
How dare you?
That's
Call yourself a commentator.
That's now playing to fill the pauses between when we're speaking. I'm sure they'll be commenting on the fact that I never went to the observer screen as well. All right, we are gonna head to for a short break.
See you guys in a bit.
think I'm just going to tweak the music. Welcome back to our broadcast. Let's see if I can get that other one that I had on earlier. Quite like that one. Nope, wrong one. I'm here with Kristen Barr. He's joining me commentating the races. The teams are just getting set up. They've completed a practice lap on the second race.
Yeah, looks like they're lining up now. Please be advised, if you want to join in on these races, we do have a second race event at 2100 hours UTC. So if you are interested in seeing if you can outdo any of these other races, if you think you can do better, please join us. There's a sign-up form, which would be appreciated. But if you don't have time to do that, you can feel free to show up for all the races and we'll try and get you in a team.
Alright, just on your screens right now we have a view of all 4 races lined up on the start line. I'm not going to tell you who won the team, which is the TSN team, because we're a little bit embarrassed at their last performance.
Oh dear.
So we'll be having words with some officers in the TSN and handing out orders to scrub the decks or something like that. What do we think?
Some kind of formal reprimand is in order.
Yeah.
Not entirely airlock worthy, but we'll see. We'll see what they have to say. Maybe they had a major ship malfunction.
It needs to be major, I think. Yeah. All right. So they complete the practice laps. You can see that they were just by the Atlantis gate. I'm not quite sure which system we're in at the moment because I don't have my stellar cartography open. There's a few different beacons. If you're joining us for the first time, you can see on the screen we've got 1S and 1P. That's going to be the first start point. S stands for a starboard turn and P stands for a port turn. So the racers have to keep that beacon off their either starboard side or port side. They've just started their race now around beacon 2, which was a starboard turn. Scott's cruiser and Turkish fleet out in the lead there. Diana and Artemis taking a wide arc on that one, aren't they? Diana quite renowned last race for its tactics of taking a really wide run round the beacon. I think there's a little bit of confusion about which way round to go.
A few of the ships seem a little bit lost at the moment, but they are now making headway.
Artemis has figured it out. Turkish fleet just seems to be going around in circles. Diana there making it round. Did you ever watch the Monty Python races that they once did?
Which one?
Maybe I'll push you a link privately,
Yeah,
Kristen. It's a funny one, is that one?
Okay, because they've what with the painters? Or am I thinking of a different one? There's a few.
There's a sketch where there's I think it's like the idiots race. With
okay.
Yeah, I'll push you a link to it later anyway, Kristen.
Winner.
So have you managed to sort out those announcements from our sponsors, by the way? Have you apologised to the Targos, for example?
I have. They have officially declared war on the TSN.
Oh, not again.
We should probably go to Fleet Command with that. Needless to say, our funding has been revoked, so we're probably going to have to seek alternative sponsors there. So Scott's cruiser pulling way out in front, closely followed by the Diana, with Artemis and Turkish trailing not too far behind there.
It looks like Turkish and Artemis may have had a couple of penalties there. Artemis last race was really up front with Scott's cruiser last time, really nipping at the heels all the way through. Scott's cruiser is definitely the one to watch on this one. If you were placing bets, you want to be placing bets on Scott's cruiser. I just got a little bit of noise through there. Artemis once again ploughing its way through the asteroids.
I mean, it's not an obstacle if it doesn't kill you, surely.
That's true. Turkish fleet obviously aiming for a gap in the asteroid to keep up maximum speed there. They are coming around nicely on that turn number 6.
Absolutely. Let's watch them on turn 6 and see. Okay, it's a little bit wide, but it's fairly neat. It's not as wide as a lot of their previous arcs. but obviously a significant dip in speed there.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that affects them going forward.
So Artemis is catching up on Scott's Cruiser there. Scott's Cruiser on its second lap, passing waypoint 2, and now on to turn number 3, the portside turn that threw a lot of them in the first lap of this race.
Hopefully people recognizing where they're going this time.
Ooh, Artemis just making it. Oh, I think they may have. Diana and Turkish Fleet, we're not quite sure what's going on with those two at the moment. They seem to be having some problems getting past the start post.
Which arguably should be the easiest post to get through.
Yep.
Now, let's see. There was a slight rule adjustment between our first race and our second race there. The penalty for a misflight has been changed. The penalty now, instead of a full stop and a 360 turn, is just a return to the turn. And remaking the turn successfully.
I'm not sure where Turkish Fleet's going on that one. Scott's Cruiser really taking the course well. Or perhaps Turkish Fleet had a penalty round turn number 7 as I had to return to it. Diana is coming round, catching up to Artemis. I think Artemis may have had a penalty there. Scott's Cruiser taking a break at the station, obviously picking up some Jordan ale or something like that.
Well, they've been gunning it pretty hard, so there's a fairly solid chance that their energy levels are quite low.
Are we going to be seeing a hare and the tortoise situation here, though, where the hare sits back, relaxes, takes a little bit of a break, and then finds them caught out by the Turkish Fleet catching up at the back?
I mean, it seems unlikely, given that the lead that Scott's Cruiser had. It was a sensible choice to make that pit stop there. This does lead me to wonder, though. Artemis taking a knock again.
Yeah.
It does lead me to wonder how the other teams are doing for energy. Are they doing more of an energy conservation run, or are they gunning it hard to catch up with Scott's Cruiser and feeling the pain?
Well, I know one of the things that we added to this was the ability for the race director to set the energy levels of the ships so that they're not running out of energy, to be able to keep the pace of the race going and not have any ships stranded. Scott's Cruiser, I've just been looking at the team there. We've got Scott, Wolf and Zorian. Wolf is a name that I remember from a long time ago. Very experienced racer. I imagine that he's the one piloting the ship, with Scott actually taking the engineering there. So they seem a really solid team, definitely one to beat. It'd be nice to see some more experienced racers joining as well to challenge that title. The Artemis definitely, I think as they hit their stride, the Artemis crew will be giving them a good run for the money there.
And Diana coming into a second place position.
Excellent.
Giving Scott's Cruiser a run for their money. Still lagging a little bit behind, but seems a lot more confident with the layout of the track now. Approaching the third beacon.
Yeah, just a crew of 2 on the Diana. Tivian and Calon are running that ship. They adds that little bit of extra challenge because they won't have the navigational assistance that Team 2 will have there and Team 1 will have with 3 on their ships. Turkish Fleet heading up to their 6th turn. Artemis currently in 3rd place, Diana in 2nd, and Scott's Cruiser in 1st.
Well, it's definitely this is definitely a more complex course compared to the first one. The asteroid challenges are not as heavy. There's smaller belts of asteroids which make things. Well, it was never much of a challenge for the Artemis. The Artemis just always flew through them. But I mean, with the careful placing of smaller asteroid belts, it really gives teams the opportunity to make that tactical decision. Do they try and navigate through the asteroid field to make that journey a little bit shorter? Do they take a perfectly valid, safer route by skirting around the asteroid belt? as we've seen in the previous race, sometimes a really wide arc can be useful when making these turns.
Yeah, those wider arcs and clearer space really allow you to keep that high warp going, that warp 4. But if you're going through the nebulas, it drops you down to warp 1. You're relying on your engineer to respond quickly to that. And if you're going through the asteroid field, you're relying on your helm to not scrape against every single asteroid as they go through it. Obviously, if you're on the Artemis ship.
The Artemis again.
1 or 2 knocks as it goes through, yeah. Diana just
Absolutely.
completed a lap there, going for its turn 2. Looks like Scott's Cruiser has just got past turning point 3 and is on to 4, so Diana lagging behind. Artemis about to complete its next lap, and Turkish Fleet I think has been lapped now by Scott's Cruiser and is about to be lapped by the Diana. Hopefully as Turkish Fleet build up a little bit more experience, get used to working together, they'll be able to keep with the main part of the pack.
I'd really like to see them come in as the underdogs and walk away with everything. That would be terrific. Scott's Cruiser seems to have built up a bit more of a lead, with the Diana still chasing hard. What do you think of Fleet Command's decision to disable weapons for this race?
Are weapons disabled is my question.
Well, I believe they are. There's certainly penalties for firing on your opponents. But back in the good old days, you'd have a weapons officer on board, and if anybody was getting too much of a lead, you'd just cripple their manoeuvring and watch them plough straight into a black hole.
I must admit though, with the light cruisers, they are fairly robust. We've got shields online, although if shields go up, it will drain the energy significantly more than just having the ship with without shields on. It changes your efficiency significantly. So
Absolutely. This brings up an interesting question though, since race controller Raiden does have the ability to manage power levels on ships to make sure nobody gets stranded, which is an interesting call. That does mean Scott's Cruiser's stop at station M572 was completely unnecessary and possibly a power play.
I think it's a little bit of showboating there. Yeah. It looks like they've just completed their final lap. Scott's Cruiser came in first, Diana in second, Turkish Fleet I think have got one more lap to go, and the Artemis is just coming to its final turns. So Scott's Cruiser first place, heading to Dalton Station for a victory drink by the looks of it. Diana in second.
It looks like Turkish Fleet actually have finished, so that is a third place position for Turkish Fleet possibly.
See, I thought they were a lap behind on that one.
Well, we can find out.
Yeah. According to the post that I've got from the race director, it was Scott's, Diana. Which one? It says Cart, which I'm not sure what Cart is. I assume that's Artemis, and the Turkish Fleet last.
Okay. Well, a splendid showing by all ships there. A really nice high-octane race. Good to see people turn out for this. We are not far away from the launch of the Atlantis campaign. If people want to get on board for that, please be aware we will be moving over to that in the not too distant future. Again, if you want to participate in races, we have our second race event happening at 2100 hours UTC. That's 2100 hours UTC. There are forms you can fill in to participate, but we won't turn anyone away at the door if you just want to show up.
All right, thanks for joining us. I don't think there's any more messages from the sponsors, are there?
Not until race 2, there isn't.
All right, okay, thanks very much. And we will see you next time.